And you know what else is like Williamsburg? East Berlin. Have you been there?
Yes, I have.
West Berlin was horrible. It was like Los Angeles. But East Berlin was like Brooklyn.
Senator Chuck Schumer is probably the most powerful Democrat in Washington after President Obama. And he's taking over as the Senate Minority Leader when Harry Reid retires after the election in 2016. So, regardless of who wins, Schumer is going to have a lot of say over American lives. He's also from Brooklyn, just like Vice, and he's obsessed with the press. So when he asked to come and see our new Brooklyn office, we said okay, provided we could film it and have a quick chat about things like our neighborhood and Iran.
I ride my bike here all the time.
So, Senator Schumer, thank you so much for joining us here.
It is exciting to be here in such a great place that's so vital and employing 500 people here in Brooklyn. We like that.
Brooklyn's changed an awful lot. And gentrification is a big issue across the world, across all the cities. And I guess you could say that Brooklyn is perhaps the apex of that movement. Now, is that a positive thing in your eye?
Yeah, Brooklyn is booming I ride my bike all over Brooklyn. I ride here right down Kent Avenue. If I should tell your listeners, there are so many great bike rides in Brooklyn, but one, you can circumnavigate the whole borough. You can start, here in Williamsburg or Greenpoint, go down through the water, you go under the Verrazano Bridge, then you can ride on the boardwalk if it's before 10 a.m. at Coney Island. You go to my favorite place, one of my favorite places in Brooklyn, and then you can come up and you see, and this is what made me think of it, the parts of Brooklyn, Brownsville. Yeah. You go to Pitkin Avenue, Sutter Avenue, they're growing. The number of empty stores has declined, everything. So that Brooklyn's in, I think, is benefiting everybody. And do the neighborhoods change? Sure. When I represented Canarsie, southern shore of Brooklyn, it was mainly an Irish, Italian, Jewish neighborhood. Now it's Caribbean. It's great, because you know what? New York City and Brooklyn, if we don't grow and change, we die.
But do you worry that perhaps the people that you grew up around can no longer afford to live in these areas?
Yeah, it's hard, but as I said, the southern parts of Brooklyn are, where a lot of the people who are up here are moving, and even out to Long Island. And we do have to look, given the new world we're in, affordable housing is a very good thing. I support, de Blasio. Even here, this fancy, nice Domino sugar factory that's across the street from you, it's going to be 20-25% affordable housing. We need it. It's important to keep New York has to be a city of the poor, the middle class, and the wealthy.
Yeah.
If we lose any one of those three, we're not New York. And so affordable housing helps make that happen, and we're trying to do it in Brooklyn.
You touched on a couple of issues which are very important to our readers and our viewers. Firstly, student debt. I work with a young woman who's got 90 grand's worth of debt. And, frankly, from my perspective, that makes her future look untenable, look very difficult.
And it hurts everything else. That person is less likely to get married, less likely to have family, less likely to buy a home, because they have this huge load on their backs. So we have to figure out a way to first, right now, I'm part of a small group of senators. The federal government charges you 8% on that interest for the loan. You can go get a mortgage at 4%. Yeah. We should lower it to 1 or 1.5%. And that would save your friend tens of thousands of dollars over the next, decade or two of her life. But second, we got to find a way to make college debt-free. When you get out of college, you don't have debt. There are certain proposals, none of them have really grasped, but we got to make an effort to do that, because college has become a necessity, but it's a luxury at the same time. You can't have that.
I have to ask you while I have you here. It seems like you're under a great deal of pressure around this Iran deal.
Yes.
And just wondering, what do you think our viewers should know about it, and which direction are you leaning?
Okay, well, to me, it's one of the most important decisions that I will make, and I've been an elected official a long time. So you have to take it very seriously. I've been very busy this week. They were cutting education funds on the education bill for New York, and we beat that back. We're trying to get a highway bill. We don't fund our highways, our roads, our bridges anymore, so we're trying to get that. So I was busy. So I brought home the whole thing, the agreement, the annexes, the codicils, and on a quiet weekend, I'm going to sit there, read it, and study it, and analyze it. And what I've learned in my years in politics, there's a lot of pressure on both sides. There are ads trying to push me on each direction right now, some online, some on TV. And on important decisions, you got to have an internal gyroscope. You got to figure out what you think the right thing is and do it. And that's what I'm going to do. And so I don't know how I'm going to come down because I haven't read the agreement. I have some worries about it. I have some worries if you don't have it. We'll see.
Do you have a timeline in mind?
Not really. I mean, we're not going to have to vote on this till September, so there is time. And after I read this agreement, I'll have a lot of questions.
I'd imagine so.
So I'm going to be meeting with the leaders in the administration and the people who negotiated it. They've already agreed to sit down. I'll be meeting with people on both sides, talking to them, and figuring it all out. You know, there are all kinds of different questions.
I mean, we're kind of staring down the barrel at an election and an election year. How do you feel in, like, your very, very long political career? How has it changed? Has politics become nastier? I feel that's the general impression.
Absolutely. It's become much more polarized. It's become more polarized in part because of the super PACs.
Yeah.
There aren't very middle-of-the-road people who do a super PAC. No. A few on the far left, but mostly on the far right, and they are nasty. Second, we have the fragmentation of the media. So, you know, when I was a kid, you listened to we had a great town hall meeting in America. It was called the National News, and people watched the ABC, NBC, or CBS National News. But you watch one or the other, depending on which, you know, if you like Walter Cronkite, you watch CBS, Huntley Brinkley. But the next morning, when you were at the water cooler at the office, even one person watched NBC, one person watched CBS, it's the same news. Today, the people who watch Fox News and the people who watch MSNBC, they're on different planets.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's hurt, people don't think about this, is primaries. Primaries now govern our elections, and who votes in the primary? If this is the American electorate, here's the most liberal person, here's the most conservative, all lined up. But the only people who vote in the primaries, independents can't even vote in the primaries, but are the people on the, you know, really on the far edges. Mm-hmm. So you get the candidates more polarized, and that's worse.
But, you know, you talk about extremes, and just as an outsider, if you could explain one thing to me about American politics, why does Donald Trump exist?
Well, two reasons. First, he's a showman, and American politics has always had showmen, and he's one of the best. He has an instinct as to how to get attention. And second, some of the things he says resonate with some of the extreme people in the Republican Party. He may say them more harshly, like about immigrants, but the Tea Party's anti-immigrant. I wrote a bipartisan immigration bill that would bring a path to citizenship for 11 million people with John McCain, hardly a big liberal. But the Tea Party wouldn't let it pass because they were anti-immigrant. So Trump, the things he says, he may say them a little more flamboyantly, but it resonates with that hard right group that votes in the primaries.
Do you believe he's like the last gasp of that kind of extreme right movement of the last 12 years?
I think that, yes. I think the hard right has played itself out, and America will go back to getting things done once they're gone.
But how about this election? Do you feel like there's going to be an opportunity for it to be an election based on policy and ideology rather than muckraking and personality?
More than before. Look, they'll outspend us. You know, when the Koch brothers say they're going to spend $1 billion,
yeah, they've got the money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. But when the average middle-class person and the average poor person feels, I need something to help me because I've been stuck in a rut, they're going to pay more attention to the issues, and that's good for us.
I was talking earlier about how strange it was that you and Bernie Sanders went to the same school. Are you surprised by his popularity?
No, because when middle-class incomes are declining, he's touching a real chord. I love Bernie. Not just because he went to Madison High School.
Were you there at the same time?
No, he was out before I got in. But we lived near each other. We didn't know it because, you know, southern Brooklyn's all apartment buildings. You maybe know who's in your apartment building, the 60 or 80 people there, but not who's 2 blocks away. But he's a great guy. He's speaking from the heart. All of my Senate colleagues like him because he's not a phony. When you're in a small group like the Senate, 100 people, you tell the real deals from the phonies. And he's not overtly attacking Hillary. He just wants to move the electorate over in his direction. That's legitimate, it's fair, and it will probably strengthen the Democratic Party.
And you believe that's actually a kind of reflective of the current movement in American politics?
Correct. Particularly on these economic issues, which have been stymied by the Tea Party.
You feel like it might be a final kind of realization of that, you know, Clinton-Blair dream of the move to the center?
Well, here is where we're at now. If this is the electorate, here's the most liberal, here's the most conservative. Here's Bernie, here's Hillary, Here's the Republican candidates. The difference between the two of them, if you look at Bernie's or the progressive platform's 8 substantive things, I agree with just every one of them.
Very sadly, today we had another example of what can happen if the wrong person finds himself carrying a gun.
Yep.
How long do you think this country must suffer this kind of event before something has changed?
I ache for this. I saw in somewhere the picture of the guy who killed people in Columbine, the guy who killed people in Sandy Hook, the guy who killed people in the Army base, and there was one more where so many people died, more than at Virginia Tech. And, I'm the author of the Brady Law. It's one of the things I'm proudest of. In 1993, 1994, I'm the author of the assault weapons ban. And we've been waiting and waiting for the politicians to catch up with the public, who's overwhelmingly on our side. The power of the NRA is enormous, and particularly in rural states and communities. And you just got to keep at it and at it and at it. I hope we'll vote on some of these measures again. I don't know if they'll pass. Someday, our day will come. It makes no sense not to have a background check. Does anyone think a felon should buy a gun? Does anyone think someone who's beat their spouse should buy a gun? Does anyone think someone who has been adjudicated mentally ill should buy a gun? No. But our laws don't prevent it.
And do you think that if in a kind of magical world there was some kind of open plebiscite on the issue, do you think the American people would vote for more control?
2 to 1. 2 to 1. And even in the states that are known as sort of red rural states, the majority of people are for it, but they're not as active. The NRA has a core, 3-4 million people of dedicated activists, and they are the ones who seem to hold the day. But we'll win sooner or later, just got to keep at it. But it's one of the greatest frustrations I've had in politics, is that the gun laws haven't caught up to where the people are.
Do you think you'll see it in your career?
Yes, God willing.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see you. Thanks.
See you.